So the Detroit Lions are officially back where they belong in the NFC North in first place after yesterday's tie, Packers, Dallas Cowboys. That was hilarious to watch. Dallas's defense is atrocious, but either way, that's besides the point. Today, we got to talk about a couple of cornerback options, and I don't know. We may revisit this, we may not. It's really going to depend on some of the updates that we get. As of now, I don't know what the updates are. By the time you're seeing this, you probably do. But what we know as of now is what Dan Campbell told us after the game, which is, hey, we all saw the DJ Reed injury. That looked pretty significant. Hopefully it's not season ending is kind of where I'm at with it. It looked like his leg locked out, which concerns me a ton because I know things can unfortunately happen with that. And he got taken off on the cart. That one's scary. And he played such a fantastic game. And then you have Terrion Arnold, who Dan didn't seem to think it was going to be as serious, but didn't seem like it would be likely that he'd probably be playing this week, though we do have an extra day this week. So depending on how that shakes out is going to depend a lot on what we're talking about today, how aggressive the Lions are, because typically, they're going to have injuries. They're going to go bring in some bodies in terms of depth, but making a significant move is what we're going to be talking about today. And I think today is the best time to do that as we wait for some of these updates. And we're going to hit on three different players, three different options that I find interesting for their own reasons, big names, okay? And then we'll go from there and see how the Lions ultimately end up addressing this. But let's start with yesterday before the games kicked off when Adam Schefter reported that teams were interested in monitoring cornerback Riq Woolen from the Seattle Seahawks. As the Lions are sitting first place in the division and it feels fantastic, there's still other games going on. And tonight, Monday Night Football, we got two games. So this is the perfect time to get in on the action with MyBookie. If you're new to MyBookie, use our code, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your bet back bonus token. For me, I love doing the parlays, so tonight, watching Aaron Glenn, I'm going to get in on this. So first off, I'm going to say the Jets win. I'm just going to take the Jets outright to add to this parlay that they handle business, drop the Dolphins to 0-4. They had their chance last week, and they missed it. Next up, I'm going to go Devon Achane, still has over 40.5 receiving yards. So much of their offense has been underneath, and Achane is an absolute menace. He just makes people miss. Tyreek comes out to play as well. And then finally, I'm going to go Mason Taylor, 24.5 receiving yards. This tight end, they love this tight end. And it's about that time where he starts taking over a little bit. So I think we're going to do that today. So with these three bets put together, a $10 bet could return me $80 if it hits at plus 700. If you want to get on the action, sign up with MyBookie. Use code DOSE. Riq Woolen's not new for me discussing as a Detroit Lion. I've done this multiple times, specifically on Bleacher Report and past trade deadline videos. I remember last year specifically talking about Riq Woolen as a cornerback target. I've always been a fan from afar of Riq Woolen. Obviously, he is an absolute playmaker. He's so long, so athletic. He has a very good statistical production at the quarterback spot. So from the outside looking in, there's a ton that you like here. But it always seems weird with him in Seattle. And I thought last year they were going to move off him, and they didn't. And this year he's played a ton, but now this is coming up that they can move off him and that Josh Jobe may end up taking his spot. There's so much weirdness here with Riq Woolen. And because of where he's at in his rookie contract, definitely cost him most of the three guys that we're going to talk about today. But the 6'4", 205-pound corner has had a rough start, I would say, to the season. Statistically speaking, really against the San Francisco 49ers, over 70 yards receiving he allowed in that game. A couple of big completions late, gave up a double move on the numbers to Ricky Pearsall, got beat on an out route, actually got beat on another route in the end zone, which wasn't thrown. It was just a tough finish, and I think a lot of this is stemmed from that specifically, but there's still things that I really do like about Riq Woolen's game when I do watch him, and I'll start there first. The guy that's allowed 10 receptions on 15 targets. He's only 26 years old at this point. First off, his half-turn pace. He's got a very easy ability to mirror vertical routes. It's easy, long speed. There's no issue with staying on top of routes depending on the coverage you're asking of him. It's really hard to stack him over top, and he has a lot of recovery ability as well. He's so lengthy, and he has so much speed and real burst to his game that even when he feels like he's out of the play, he all of a sudden gets himself back in the picture. He had a great pass break on an out route in the end zone on a play like that so far this season. Plays on his toes, plays with pretty good balance to plant and drive. And again, he's so lengthy and disruptive at the catch point. It already just closes so much airspace for him when he plays that kind of way. He's also fairly loose in his hips as well, especially as a press corner. He's fairly versatile. You can ask a lot of different coverage schemes of him, and we see that with his hips in press. He can really get out, deal with vertical release. He also brings a really nice physical frame with the lengthiness where he doesn't ever seem like he's really overpowered. He deals with tight ends pretty well. He sticks with digs really well. He gets pretty handsy, but he doesn't feel overly grabby, at least so far this year. I know in the past I think that's been an issue, but he does do a pretty good job of like dig routes, really minimizing separation. We had the interception this year against Arizona last game where he was the guy in coverage. A little bit handsy at the top, but there really wasn't any separation, really nowhere to throw that football. So you can put him in like two-man under spots, and he can be an absolute menace with somebody over top with the kind of length that he actually has. We talked about the recovery burst, especially when he's working out of press situations. It's excellent. And really, for me, his ability to trail, reattach, it's pretty impressive for a guy at his size. Press footwork is very patient off the line of scrimmage. He doesn't feel overly antsy. Just a player that you still feel like you can mold, but you can ask so much of him in terms of coverage assignments. That being said, it's clear I don't think he's a great run defender. Now, that's not to say he's graded out poorly or he can't tackle. And when he does tackle, he doesn't allow much leakage from what I've seen, which is great. I just don't think he has a wanting to get in and everything. I just don't feel that from him. I don't feel the want to just get off of blocks consistently. It's not that he can't. He definitely has a skill set to do it. When he does tackle, he goes low. It's great. But he doesn't seem like he has that urgency and that fire to go make a play. Maybe that gets sparked if he gets moved somewhere else. I just don't feel that when I watch him. But on the taller side, so he has an issue of playing a little bit tall. He has an issue with losing some connection at the top of the route. Again, a guy like Pearsall with that kind of quickness off the line gave him some real problems. He just didn't feel like he had the footwork to actually mirror in that with being as tall as he is. And in his back pedal, he plays pretty upright as well, which can cause him to be a little bit more sluggish. And there's some discipline issues. Like when the ball's in the air, sometimes you don't feel the detail to actually reattach. You feel him just kind of go out of his own way and just say, I'm going to go make a play. I'm going to be a playmaker. And that can be great. It can also put him in some bad spots. So he doesn't always close airspace fast enough. It feels like an off-man coverage, kind of just gives a little bit too much ground. It doesn't feel exactly like I would think a Lions cornerback would look like, especially if the asking price is like a third-round pick, which people think it could be. I think that's too high. I don't think that'll be the asking price at all. But that being said, he was very productive early in his career, and if there's enough interest, it could push that price point up for him. Riq Woolen is probably the biggest name that's going to be available. Now, there's a free agent out there that's a pretty big name as well, and there's plenty. I like, first off, keep in mind, Emmanuel Mosley's still a free agent, which is always an option for the Lions. It's something you got to keep in mind. Antonio Hamilton Sr., who didn't play much last year, I was a big fan of him. Older player from Arizona. I liked him at Arizona a lot. Like Asante Samuel Jr., who definitely seems like it's injury-related, but I don't know, again, if he's the best scheme fit either. But he was super productive, before obviously all the injury stuff seemingly popped up. So there's real options still in the cornerback market, which is the thing that I think stands out the most. Guys that you do like there, Corey Ballantyne is on the free agent market. We're very familiar with him, but the biggest name is probably Stefon Gilmore. And this one has gotten all the attention. I mean, a week ago, New England fans are posting this guy's still available, and they had Gonzalez out, so that makes sense. But ultimately, Stefon Gilmore would just cost money. You wouldn't have to make a trade for him if you wanted to come here. He's 34 years old. It's clearly just a 1 year. Let's help us get through the season kind of thing. And this would be, to me, if it's significant injuries across the board, for sure that this would be interesting. The problem I have with Gilmore is very straightforward. I don't know how much of a consistent press piece that you'd want him to be at this stage. That's not to say he doesn't have the footwork for it, because I think he probably has the best press footwork out of any of these guys. And you see that there's so much looseness in his game. He's so fluid in terms of his transition still to this point where he's very reactive. I just don't know that that's his game in terms of some of the juice off the line of scrimmage to consistently live there, play bump and run. I don't know if that's the game that he's actually super comfortable playing, which is why it worked for Minnesota last year, because a lot of it was off coverage, a lot of it was zone, a lot of it was top down. And I think that fit him really well. We saw with Khalif, he had the problem on kind of the out route that he ran for like 13 yards, but he also had a great break on St. Brown where he's reading through the route development. He has a way quicker trigger than I think these other two players to this point in terms of seeing it, processing it, and driving on the football. Because that, he takes excellent angles at the catch point. I mean, he's a player that he's going to get on top of where the route is going. There's a lot of anticipation. At the catch point, he's disruptive. Doesn't seem like a big-time playmaker in terms of he's going to take the football away a lot. He is a guy that times it really well. So at very least, he's typically making contact when the ball is touching the hands of the receiver. So there's still all of those things that I do like. He's smooth passing off routes. In zone coverage, you can kind of ask everything of him. You can ask him to do whatever. He can play as a safety. You can invert coverage with him. You can play him underneath. I mean, he can kind of do it all, and he's very fluid. And again, he's got active eyes when working in different zone coverage alignments. So there's not much I think you can put on his plate that he's not going to be comfortable with. He's leveraged really well in off coverage because of some of that proactive footwork that he does play with. I think he has a big-time closing burst at this point in his game. The short area quickness was also a little bit questionable. As a run defender, he's been very consistent over the years. He has some ugly tackling attempts, right? He doesn't feel like a thumper in the run game, but he has been a very consistent tackler year after year after year. He's probably going to give up a lot of yards underneath. Some of that's scheme related. Some of that's kind of his game now. I don't know. He's not going to be a shutdown kind of guy. He also, to me, is going to be taking the football away a ton, but he's going to be extremely versatile in a good spot consistently. He's probably going to force you to make a lot of tight window throws, level 2 and level 3, and he's probably going to be able to live in that kind of game. And you could ask everything of him as long as you keep him as an outside cornerback. So for me, he can give him some yards, but he can definitely still play if you just go based on last year. It wasn't his best season, but he was fair. He was good. He was fine, and you can work with that. That said, though, I don't know if this is exactly the style the Lions would want. It's interesting. And then finally, I'm going to go another trade target, which is Joshua Williams from the Kansas City Chiefs. This one intrigues me, I think, the most, because while he's not incredibly polished and there's still things that it's like, he's giving up too much here and there, but this is based on last year. He hasn't even really played defensively this year for Kansas City, which is crazy to me. He's also in the final year of his rookie deal as a former 4th-round pick. He's played like one defensive snap, mainly just being utilized on special teams. They're not going to play him it would make sense that you could get this piece for very little. I mean, before the season was projected a 6th-round pick in 2027. We got a pick for Patrick. Maybe something like this could actually be possible, something significant, and he could have a long-term outlook that wouldn't be maybe a very expensive contract after this year. Who knows? He's also a very long corner, 6'3", 190, but he plays it much differently. He doesn't look that big on film, which isn't a problem because he's very physical. He's very physical. He's the kind of guy that feels like a Lion stylistically, where he wants to get in your face. He's going to press you at the line. He's going to slow down your progress. If you don't fight him off, he's just going to halt you right at the line of scrimmage. He matches up with tight ends. He's got tons of physicality to match up with really whoever you throw across from him. And there's a fearlessness. I feel like there's an urgency. There's an aggressiveness. There's reactiveness to his game to attack the ball, attack in terms of route concepts. There's a little bit more of that. He feels like a young player. He feels like a young guy that's trying to prove himself every time he's on the field. He allowed a 60% completion percentage last season, 1 touchdown, no picks, which is an 87 pass rating. He did have 6 penalties, which isn't great. And we'll talk about some of the issues here. He settles down his pads. He's very squatty. He sits low in zone coverage. There's a detail to that where he doesn't feel out of place or consistently upright. Now, there's some problems in terms of giving up his blind spot and in terms of guys being able to attack his leverage and press situations. That can be an issue. Pretty fluid in tracing routes as well when he's underneath in coverage, which was a little bit surprising for me to kind of get himself back into the play. Doesn't give up a ton of separation. He feels very crisp when he cuts at the top of routes and top of breaks, being able to snap them off. Strong in the ankles, you feel like, where he's very crisp there. Plant and drive footwork is pretty efficient as well, though the explosion is not incredible. Pretty controlled when he's having to recover in plays, which you don't feel like an elite speed. He ran a 4.53 coming out, but he feels so controlled and so much good body control where he doesn't feel like he's ever that far away from getting back into a play. And a lot of times he does feel like he gets back into play, and then you start to feel his length a lot, which is very impactful for him at the catch point. Now, some of the issues are clear, though. Oversetting at the line of scrimmage, broken plays. You don't feel like he overlaps zone coverage that often. Like, I feel like he knows where he's supposed to be, and he kind of plays his job, but he doesn't feel like he goes above and beyond. Feels like you can absolutely just set him up with, like, scheme beaters in zone, and he's probably not going to react to it and actually make a play beyond what's expected. Doesn't feel like he has some of the looseness to continuously stay attached. He does a nice job of undercutting the initial route. He kind of plays that out pretty well. He has a sense for that. But as the play extends, you don't feel as much creativity from him at the cornerback position. The sluggishness, it didn't feel very reactive. We needed to flip and turn and get open. It felt like he was just losing a step out sprint to get back into it, and that would give some space at the top of the route for curls and comebacks. Things like that can set him up. So more nuanced receivers feel like they're going to give him much more problems. I felt like he lacked a little bit of twitch at the catch point, which was a weird part. Like, it just didn't feel like he was overly reactive at the catch point where he was actually going to make as many plays you would hope. He's lengthy, so when he sticks with you through the route, he can really limit airspace and close windows. But when he's in terms of like zone and he's got to react and make a play, he didn't feel overly twitchy, right? He didn't feel overly reactive there. So he just didn't feel as many plays I thought he was capable of. But he's interesting to me because I think he plays the game the way the Lions like to play. He's young enough where, you know, you could potentially have him long-term here, and he's going to cost much less, I would think, than Riq Woolen. I think Joshua Williams stylistically is the most interesting. Gilmore might be the most realistic because you don't have to trade for him. Riq Woolen feels like the longest shot because I think he's probably going to cost too much, and I still don't really completely buy that he's actually going to get moved. But I do like all these three in their own ways. I think Williams is probably my favorite for fit. Gilmore probably I don't know. I could see liking Woolen's fit a little bit better in pure coverage, not as a run defender, but pure coverage. But because of the price point and because I don't think he's overly aggressive to make plays against the run, I think they definitely lean a guy like Gilmore over Woolen. Leave it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hopefully these aren't serious injuries. We'll get an update soon. Shout out to my bookie for sponsoring today's video. Use code DOSE and I'm out.